When I was a child, I lived in a rented two-floor house. My father and mother both had to work, so I was often alone in the house when I got back from school. One day, I was delayed on my way back from school. It was early evening when I got home and the house was dark. I called out, "Mom," and heard a faint voice say yes from upstairs. I called my mom again, and again got the same yes reply. It sounded like she was calling me, so I started climbing up the stairs. When I reached the first floor, I called her once more and heard the yes coming from the back bedroom. I felt a certain uneasiness and wanted to see my mother as soon as possible, so I hurried closer to the back room. I was about to open the bedroom door when suddenly, I heard sound of the front door downstairs opening. My mother came in, carrying lots of shopping bags. "Sweetie, I'm back. Are you home?" she called out to me in a bright voice. Hearing her voice, I completely regained my confidence and ran downstairs. Just then, I happened to glance over my shoulder, towards the back bedroom. The door to the room slowly opened with a creak. For a moment, I saw something strange in the gap of the door. The pale face of a man was staring directly at me. When I was about 10 or 11, my family lived in a 3-story house. My bedroom was on the top floor. It was small, square and simple. There was a glass door in my bedroom that led into a small brick room. There was no ceiling on this room, and there was an opening in the roof above that extended to the open air. There was nothing in this little room, just the drain in the middle of the floor. It was probably put there to allow the rainwater to drain away. There was something about the drain bothered me. Whenever I saw it, I felt sick to my stomach. Once, I even thought I saw the drain cover jiggle slightly when I opened the door. There always seemed to be a chill in the air whenever I opened the door to that little brick room. I only ever had the nerve to open the door in broad daylight and then only to take a quick peek inside. Even though the sun was blazing outside, it was always deathly cold in the brick room. The memory of what happened in that room still haunts me and plagues my dreams from time to time. Shortly after I moved into that bedroom, I started having very bad dreams. One night, I had a particularly horrifying nightmare, and I awoke with the feeling that something was terribly, terribly wrong. Immediately, my eyes darted to the door. I lay there in bed, afraid to move, but unable to look away from the door in case there might be something there when I looked back. That was when I first heard the whispering noise. It sounded a wire brush softly rubbing against something. It wasn't coming from any discernible direction, but it seemed to gradually surround me like a blanket, pressing on my ears. Eventually, I managed to fall asleep, but the next morning, I swore I could make out footprints in the dust around the drain in the little brick room. After that, the whispering rarely stopped at night. It was always there, from the time I switched off the lights until I finally managed to fall asleep. Often, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find the room completely silent. Then, the whispering would start, as if it had just been waiting until I was awake. Over the next few months, the whispering continued. It was just a hollow hiss that seemed to repeat over and over. It didn't sound angry or sad. It was always just there. Then one night, something happened. I still have nightmares about this incident, and it makes me cringe and want to curl up in a ball whenever I recall it. I awoke from a terrible nightmare. The moonlight was barely filtering in through the window. I looked at the door to the little brick room, and that's when I saw it. To my utter horror, I could make out something lurking in there. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw that it was a woman. She had dark curly hair and pale white skin. Her eyes were completely black and filled with anger and hatred. Suddenly, she began shrieking and pounding on the glass door with both fists. Her head started swiveling around on her neck, shaking back and forth like a kettle on a stick. Her hair tossed around violently and the skin around her mouth flapped loosely, giving me glimpses of her teeth and tongue. Saliva dripped from the corners of her mouth and flew off as she shrieked. I was terrified, and all I could do was let out a high-pitched scream. As I screamed, she shrank back from the door and slithered down the drain somehow. Her body was twisted and distorted, and I swear I could hear her bones splintering and cracking as she wound herself down into the drain. My father came charging down the hallway to my bedroom, thinking I was having a nightmare. When he got to the door, the drain lady was already gone. It was awful, and to this day, my father says he's never heard anyone scream so inhumanely before. I often ask him jokingly if he meant from me or her. In May 1951, a strange incident is said to have taken place in the city of Manila in the Philippines. One night, a police officer was on patrol when he came across an 18-year-old girl stumbling through the back streets. She was clothed in a flimsy dress and seemed to be talking to herself. He overheard her saying, "Help me! Help me! Someone is biting me!" The police officer suspected that she was high on drugs and suffering from hallucinations, so he arrested her and brought her down to the police station. However, when he took off her handcuffs at the station and tried to take her fingerprints, the girl suddenly started screaming, "He's here! He's here! Help me! He's chasing me!" she cried, before collapsing to the floor. As the policeman bent down to help her up, he saw something that horrified him. Right before his very eyes, fresh bite marks began to appear on the girl's shoulders and arms. The wounds were deep and started bleeding. The police officer couldn't believe what he was seeing and immediately contacted the chief of police. His boss was furious about being disturbed in the middle of the night. He got out of bed and came down to the station to see what was wrong. At first, he thought the girl must have made the marks herself, but when he examined her more closely, he realized that the bite marks were in places she couldn't possibly reach. "You can't chew on your own back," he muttered, scratching his head. They decided to keep the girl in the police station overnight and locked her in a cell. During the night, a police officer was tasked of watching over her and making sure she didn't hurt herself while in police custody. As dawn arrived, the girl was sleeping peacefully, so the policeman decided to take a break for a cup of coffee. Just as he was pouring himself a cup, he heard the girl screaming again. "He's back! He's back!" Her cries were blood-curdling, and the police officer was so surprised that he dropped his coffee. The cup smashed on the floor and he struggled to find his keys in his pocket. As he listened to the terrifying shrieks coming from the direction of the cells, he was sure that the girl was in fear for her life. By the time the police officer managed to unlock the door to the cells, the screaming had stopped. He found the girl lying on the floor of her cell in a pool of blood. Her throat had been torn out and there were bite marks all over the back of her neck. The police chief arrived at the station with the coroner, and both men examined the girl's corpse. Neither of them could explain how she had been murdered while locked in an empty cell. Every policeman in the station was trembling with fear. According to the legend, the police covered up the strange incident and the girl's death was listed as suicide. However, the true details of the case were recorded by the Manila Police in a special, top-secret, classified casebook under the heading Unsolved Mystery NO.108-The Bite Marks.